Our Decision 2024 coverage tonight, part 2 of our Q&A with Republican Senator Deb Fischer and her opponent, Independent Dan Osborn.
It's looking like a close race, getting national attention as Republicans try to reclaim Senate control. Our Joe Harris spoke with them about events happening nationally and around the globe.
The Farm Bill recently expired. It includes food aid for struggling families and subsidies for farmers. If its benefits run out at the end of the year, it could mean higher prices at the grocery store. And that's on the minds of Nebraska Senator Deb Fischer and her opponent, Dan Osborn.
They're kicking the can down the road with the Farm Bill. That expired September 30th, came and went. Now we're on extension from 2018. Our farmers are losing money.
Osborn calls the crop insurance price references outdated and says they need to be adjusted for inflation. Fischer, who sits on the Ag Committee, says it's still possible to get something done on the Farm Bill after the election, but she adds that Republicans want to see it check several boxes.
We have to have a disaster aid process where it moves forward at a quicker rate instead of taking 2 years or more. Somebody, could lose their farm if they have to wait 2 years or more to get that disaster aid.
She says she would settle for another 1-year extension on the bill. On the topic of disaster recovery, Nebraska is among several states that suffered extensive storm damage this year. Shortly before Hurricanes Helene and Milton hit the East Coast, Congress passed a temporary measure replenishing FEMA's disaster recovery fund, but Fischer voted against it because of what she calls a broken system in the Senate.
Before I was on the committee for 6 years, there were no public hearings. There was no action taken by the members of the committee. It was 4 people in a room who decided how our taxpayer dollars were going to be spent. They decided what programs they were going to fund.
Osborn agrees to an extent.
If a system is broken, to keep funding it would be a mistake, but in the short term, especially in the lieu of the storms, people are suffering and people need help, and they need help now.
Fischer says lawmakers will have time to help FEMA with what it needs when they return to the Senate after the election. The war between Israel and Hamas militants has recently expanded into Lebanon and Iran. Both candidates support backing Israel in the conflict. The U.S. recently deployed troops to Israel, but neither candidate thinks it's appropriate for them to fight in the war.
As to sending our troops anywhere, I would have to be thoroughly convinced that that was necessary before I would ever vote to send our young men and women into harm's way.
Do you support the idea of sending U.S. troops to fight in Lebanon, Iran, or both?
Currently, no.
You say currently. Would that change in the future? Or could that change in the future?
I would say, I would have to say, I don't know that I could ever support that.
On your side, Joe Harris, 6 News.
We have an online extra with Senator Fischer and Dan Osborn over Fischer's decision not to have debates. We have that included with this story on WOWT.com.